start this.
You got it. Nice job.
Start letting them in.
Oh. Good morning, everyone.
Did you sing in your church choir growing up or anything, Ben?
La, 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 la. No, I have an audio. I have a, was it the tuner filter on my microphone? It makes me sound hideous when I sing. So it's the opposite.
Well, good morning, everyone, as you're in. Always good to see some familiar faces here. Oh. And how was everyone's time off? Uneventful, happy, full of politics and football and all of that?
No politics at the dinner table.
It's funny. Everybody always says that happens, but I was reading a study the other day that says it actually doesn't. People tend not to talk politics at the table. I guess I just grew up in the wrong family. So
That's down on fights.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to wander on in here.
I would imagine most people are spending today and yesterday catching up on all the emails and everything they also had to do.
Right. Yeah. Having 2 days off just means that you've got 5 days of work to do, or sorry, 7 days of work to do this week. And 5 days to do it in.
We had a holiday. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Enrique. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Sure. How was your Thanksgiving? Did you
It was
some time
amazing. Well, yeah, I guess. My laptop next to me.
Yep.
Fun never stops.
What do they say? Money never sleeps.
Yeah.
You have to do the bad guys, it seems. Helps when they're in a different time zone.
I said I like it when money works 24/7.
Yes, amen.
It also can work against you if you're not careful.
Hey, there's the rub.
Right? It doesn't really care. It will go whichever way you master it. If it becomes your master, it's all over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you figure out how to keep the needle on the one side of the gauge. Do let me know.
Perhaps SaaS Alerts might have an influence there. What do you think?
Well, I don't want to claim to, fight bad guys and detect intrusions and give financial advice. So
No. We're just talking about the fact that our customers are now discovering that they need to have someone watch it's like an alarm system for your home. It's an alarm system for your email. In fact, that's probably a pretty good way to look at it. If you take the concept of a managed alarm security service, it kind of maps pretty well. Have any thoughts on that?
Not far off.
Wow. It's not getting to be a safer world, that's for sure.
But the point is, it's more complicated. And so that actually might work. I'm just trying to think this through a little bit.
See the marketing wheels spinning.
Well, it's applicable, isn't it? How do you explain SaaS Alerts? How do you explain SaaS Alerts that make sense?
How do you explain it? How do you put it in terms that the end users can understand? And that's the challenge in our world as we educate our clients. If they don't understand it one way, I got to have 3 different ways to come at it in my pocket. I have to have different ways to explain these guys.
People relate to storytelling. By the way, I don't know that you're recording, so I'm just making you aware.
Yep,
if you wanted to start. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, we started it a little early. I always looked at it like he's a bouncer at the door, is that letting the good people in, and then like someone gets too rowdy inside, kicking them out.
Yeah, but it's also, are they coming in through the windows? Are they, blocking you off at your door, at your driveway, putting a gun to your head? All these things begin to take in. It records all this activity. It can call in the cyber cop, right? It can dispatch people. It can block their access. It can drop the bars. I think of the James Bond, the steel barriers coming down, that type of thing, right?
All righty. Well, we go ahead and kick this off as we do each
Hey,
week.
by the way, did I hear tomorrow that you have a doctor's appointment?
Someone's on mic.
Stephen, I think that
Sorry.
you're
Nice.
maybe
I have a doctor's appointment today, but
all righty. Good morning, everyone. I trust and hope everyone had a fantastic holiday with your families and everything was safe and uneventful. Per usual, we'll just kind of toss this out there. Does anybody have any burning needs right now before we go into the tap dance or I don't know, Dan, what is this sort of a dog and pony
dog
show
and
at
pony
times?
show is what I was going to say. Yeah.
All righty. We here at SaaS Alerts, I don't think saw any giant great spikes, but I do want to talk about that later about what your end users, what your customers may have experienced, what you may have seen. Um, we haven't typically, and I'd have to check our annual SASE report, but I don't recall this as being a threat heavy holiday, but actually that's something I should have had in my pocket. I should have researched that. But I don't recall the Thanksgiving being a threat heavy holiday, so I hope that everybody dodged the bullet. Ben, why don't you catch us up a little bit? I know we've had one or two minor updates on the platform that if the folks haven't seen yet might be of use to them. What have you got in your pocket, Ben?
For sure. Cool.
That sharing looks great. Thanks.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. So I know Adam would like us to bring this up that he has recently added the automation to the mapping for devices in Unify. So I just wanted to kind of show you guys that new screen in case you missed it. And what this will let you do is once it has a certain confidence level and who this device belongs to, it can automatically map that for you instead of you doing that as like a manual process. And one of the really cool things is once you set it up, we've also added a what if machine. So you can run to see what would happen without actually letting it do it completely automated. I know with some of our partners that have thousands of devices and thousands of users, they didn't want to do that each one at a time. So we're hoping this makes it a lot easier for you guys.
Yeah, I know our dev team has been they were working on the algorithms for this from day one, but they have put a ton of time into this. And I think it's going to be a solid add, especially for anybody who's got more than a handful of users to bring into Unify. So if you guys aren't 100% clear on how to utilize Unify, absolutely reach out to your account managers. We're happy to jump on a quick, I mean, it's a 15-20 minute call to bring you up to speed on what Unify can do. And as I say often, Unify is a bit monomaniacal, but what it does really, really well. So.
And Andy, you have your hand up. What's up?
Does this also alert in the event that the link between SaaS Alerts Unify and my RMM breaks? I've had that experience, and first off, when was this added, the automation piece?
Let's see. It was.
I think we went live with that Monday or Sunday.
Okay, that's because I'm just kind of going, hey, this is great. Does this also allow me to check? Because I've also had the experience where SaaS Alerts has broken the link to my customer, and I want to be notified when the link breaks to my RMM tool or it breaks to a customer tenant on Microsoft.
I'm going to speak a little meta on this, Andy. we had a recent issue. There was an update to the platform that was causing an artifact that was falsely reporting that things were disconnected. I'd have to look at my spreadsheet, but there is an absolute critical alert if the API becomes disconnected from any of the modules. So if you get a disconnect, whether it's in Fortify or Respond or in Unify or in the Manage module, which is the organizations as we look at it, you'll absolutely get a 911 critical alert. And that's one to be sure not to turn down. And
All right. And
the
so
worst
then,
part is this artifact, this little challenge we had last week made it look terrible. I mean, there were just our support guys were getting blown up by this.
okay.
But the truth of the matter is we've had folks stable as a table for going on 5 years.
Absolutely agree.
And
I
so
saw this for the first time just a couple weeks in the last 2 weeks. So that's really my
exactly.
question. Do you guys have a best practice around, hey, these are the alerts that should be enabled for management of SaaS alerts? Because
I'm going
you
to give
just
you
pointed
my
out to me, go ahead.
I'm going to give you my company line, and then Ben's going to give you his. I sat on your side of this phone call perspective. So thank you for teeing that up, Andy. Um, the joke I make is that best practices. I can't really call anything here best practices because then the company lawyers go a little bit bananas. The truth of the matter is, some of those spreadsheets that we've shared, anybody who's not familiar with that spreadsheet, be sure and reach out to your account manager that talks about all of your different alert definitions. Over the last couple of years, I've gone through and collected what I see partners consistently worried about and highlighted those. Take that at face value. I'm not going to call it best practices. What I am going to call it is what are I see other partners having success. And then as we've evolved and brought in things like Respond and Fortify, guys like my good friend Ben Jones, who have sat on your side of this phone call and have implemented this. I know Ben has some very strong opinions about like, man, here are like the top 3 or 4 things that everybody should be doing. So I'm not going to call them best practices, but Ben, what would you call them?
Recommendations.
Perfect. Thank
How
you.
about that?
What recommendations would you make for an MSP implementing SaaS alerts with an RMM and its customers to know when something isn't right with SaaS alerts connecting with the tenants and making sure that we're able to respond to it rapidly?
So we do have, like Anthony was saying, an alert that will pop up if there's an API connection broken. And
Okay.
so that should show up as either medium or critical. Hopefully you don't see those happening.
Okay.
But that should notify you. The recommendations I was going to make was mostly revolved around respond rules that different partners have asked about. Yeah, we have a couple people that will bring in and say, what's the best practice? What's the best practice? And honestly, it's kind of forever changing.
Yeah. Well, then let's rephrase the question.
Mm-hmm.
What are the right questions to ask our customers to create the correct respond rules? How about if I rephrased it that way?
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of what are the bad guys doing? Like if they're changing up their tactics, then we need to be as fluid as they are, and make changes to those rules. So I mean, if there's one that we monitor for forwarding rules created with like a period or 2 periods or 3 periods, and if they decide, hey, I'm gonna use dashes, I'm gonna use this verbiage instead, then we just need to adapt to that. It's definitely.
And is there a place I could go to find out where these rules are mapped, defined and mapped out for me? Where could that be?
So I'm going to bring up our rule templates, which many of you are familiar with within Respond, but there is a lot of them in here, and I want to kind of pull out like my top 4, I guess you could say. And a lot of these are really great, and some of them will work with Unify beautifully, but not everybody has Unify set up or configured correctly. So I'm going to cover the ones that are pretty much not Unify for now, and just the ones that we've seen a lot of people implement. And then I'm going to ask you guys what you found to be beneficial, if it's rules that you've created what are they? Do you mind sharing them? So the first one is, if you guys use break glass accounts, which I highly suggest that you do, if for some reason your main account is the MFA is broken on it, or it's become locked out, it's good to have a backup. But you also want to alert and monitor those backups to make sure that your guys aren't just using them because it's easier to sign into that rather than to do the MFA thing. So this alert right here is great for that. This one will monitor for any activity that happens with your break glass accounts. So if somebody signs in at all from anywhere, we're going to alert on that. Because this is kind of one of those emergency accounts. You want to be alerted. You want to be notified if someone's, ringing the fire bell. Any questions on that one?
If you make an adjustment or changes to this, where does that, do you guys post that anywhere on the internet for us to be able to say, hey, I just need to follow this?
Like updates to the rules or anything in here?
Or I'm thinking of the Reddit location, be honest with you.
Yeah, we do Reddit. We do a lot of YouTube. I'm trying to post videos on our little tech tidbits and our tech tips. And so those will sometimes contain rules or just general advice that we've seen in the wild. So YouTube or Reddit. I make it a point to post everything that I do on Reddit, so you'll catch it on there.
So
Cool, thank you.
question, guys.
Hmm?
So when you go to the API alerts, the criticals that you showed a little earlier, they're all set on default. How can we create a rule? Like if I ever get users blocked by the auto remediation, I'll get a text message. If there's 100 users, I'll get 100 text messages on that block. How could we create a rule for those critical APIs? Because I have just right now I'm checking and I have a couple of disconnections here. How can we create a rule so it'll send us a text message whenever, I think there's 6 critical apps set up for the API, when any of those break, so we can also get a text message?
A great question. Anthony, you have anything on that one?
Sure, that would be actually very straightforward. If you want to scroll up to the top, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry, in the rule templates and go back to rules top left. Enrique, this is how I would attack it. Generate a new rule, big green button top right. And let's call this API disconnect. Or Enrique's awesome API rule. Yeah.
Let me finish.
And then under orgs and accounts, yeah, exactly. Conditions would be API, type in API. API connection has failed. Single occurrence within 8 hours will get you there. And then down under SMS, absolutely. Punch your own SMS in there. Don't forget alert configuration. Be sure and capture this as a, oh, thank you, Ben. Go to alert configuration and be sure and capture this as an additional critical alert, even though it's already a critical alert by default. But now your cell phone's going to buzz if you were to build a rule like that. I know that was a real quick rip through, but does that sort of track, Enrique?
Can you go back to actions, please, so I can take a screen capture? Because I'm slow.
So we'll do
In this
nothing
case,
for this
I
one.
would use it not to make a change, but to send a 911 to your cell phone, as well as generate an alert that would flow into your PSA.
Correct. But the cell phone, to me, when the API disconnects, I need my cell phone because sometimes my PSA overwhelms
Exactly.
me.
Exactly.
So then, but you called it just via, where are we setting who we're calling? Or what's triggering it, the event?
Sure. The event is the baked in alert that's an API connection has failed.
Oh,
And
perfect.
today that monitors all 6 of the different kinds of of applications. So Microsoft, Google, G Suite, all of those. As we continue to build out it with the application library, with the app wizard that's coming in December. Gosh, it's like the day after tomorrow.
Can you-
It'll be around. I think we have a launch on that mid-month. So stick around for news on that. But
What do you have on
anytime
one applications?
I'm sorry, Enrique, what was that?
Okay, just Microsoft. Perfect. And then I guess we're just monitoring for ourselves
Yeah,
as the
absolutely.
organization.
Absolutely. And again, this is something exceedingly rare. I'd have to have my guys pull it, but over the last 4 years, I don't think we've seen 3 of these fail. I personally have never seen an API connection fail. Once we've established those tokens, this is stable as a table. It is rock solid. Now,
I just noticed with Datto's update recently, it disconnected again, but I've had a couple of RMM disconnects.
thanks for that heads up, Enrique. I'll talk to my dev guys about being a little more aggressive about notifying on that.
Welcome.
Any questions on this rule that Ben and I just tossed up here? Great question, Enrique. Great question.
Definitely. All right, well, I'll
Ben,
jump
what
back
else?
to respond.
Yeah, what else do we want to talk about here?
Okay, so I had somebody ask me, like, if you had to pick one rule out of all these to implement that would be the most effective, which one would I pick? And it definitely had to be the Jake Tarrant inbox rule created here. This one is very simple. Looks for outside approved location and then a mail forwarding rule enabled. 2 conditions that really shouldn't happen. And this one is very nice because you can define the time period. He said, if someone signs in the first 20 minutes, they're creating a mail forwarding rule, I want to be notified. But you can adjust this to be within the first hour or 2, especially if you have someone that's in there and they're just taking their time. But something that shouldn't fire off unless, there's a bad guy in there.
May I ask a question, Ben?
Of course.
Do you guys collect any analytics over the frequency of rule hitting so that we could potentially say, you know what, these rules are really valuable and these rules are less frequent but also important? Does that make sense?
It does. And I don't
The
know.
long and the short of it is every single alert going back for a year is in the database someplace. So if you wanted to know how many times someone's done an IAM event that's failed, I can tell you how many billions of those there are. I mean, that is in the database in a obfuscated way. So I can see that as raw data.
I'm just looking to establish some sort of KPI process around
right.
rule utilization and value, because we could then go to our customers and say, this rule is really essential. And here's how it's hitting across not just our customer base, but potentially nationwide, as an example.
It's very interesting.
Exactly. And
it would be interesting to have those kind of numbers.
Yeah, it would be to get the metrics on that. How often does this particular rule fire? The challenge is once you take that base template, clone it off as your own, rename it. Now I've lost a little bit of that. So I'd have to look at the root triggering event. And if you've changed it from 20 minutes to 1 hour, now it's gone soft. So I'm not going to lie, the data is in there. Digging it out. Hey, Andy, if you got a spare data and analytics guy that you want to lend me for the summer, I got a great project for him.
I think I'm just saying, guys, this would be a great thing for the 2024 reports. These are the top respond rules that make a big difference, right?
Yeah,
and
actually,
this is how it's saved.
Aside, that
Pardon
may
me?
be something they're going to put in the SASE report.
Yeah.
So that's something that anyone who was on the AM team who has any insight on that, please let's take this offline.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, the next one on my list, number 3, is, and this is in no particular order, is the MFA fatigue from an abusive IP. We have a couple of these. They're basically looking for MFA failures, but this one kind of goes a step farther and adds some filters to it. This one looks for multiple MFA failures, but only where the IP address is, anonymous, attacker, abuser, or proxy. So I like this one because it cuts down on a lot of the false positives and maybe someone just having a bad day with their MFA codes. Any questions on that one? So I will throw this out there. What do you think would be the appropriate action if this were to kick off and you were seeing a whole bunch of these fire off? Anthony, anybody?
I'm sorry, I was reading something else off screen. Ask me the question again, Ben.
So what do you think would be the appropriate action as an MSP if you saw this rule firing repeatedly?
Oh no, absolutely. Block new sign-ins to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's stop that.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, depends on your level of paranoia. Is obviously do nothing. I know a lot of these, and I may have mentioned this before.
Mhm.
A lot of these rules are submitted to us, in this case, from our friends at Logically, and they may have had much more aggressive actions. And our team that publishes this to our library decides to tone it down a bit. So take that at face value.
Yep.
I think that I would be far more aggressive at the very least, starting with blocking new sign-ins for that particular account, and perhaps going a little 911-ish, and actually blocking sign-ins entirely, as well as expiring the account log as doing a token flush.
Mm-hmm. Another thing you may want to also consider is the MFA is being hit here repeatedly. So most likely that bad guy also has that guy's password. And the only thing keeping them out of this account is the MFA. So it's definitely something to consider. Mm-hmm. And that happen. We see that happen a lot with password reuse. You know, once those credentials hit the dark web, I mean, how many times has your client used the same password for quite literally everything? So with that happening, we definitely want to also, we can reset the password as well, which we can text you guys, or like Anthony said, lock the account, and let's go ahead and reach out to this guy and find out what's going on.
Yeah, at the very least, stop new logins.
Yep.
Let's stop the bad guy from being able to even get past username and password.
Mm-hmm.
At which case he knows he's busted. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
You just said something that just literally perked my ears up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if and when an account password gets on the dark web, do you by any chance have the ability to see, like if we said abc.com, right? That's company's domain. You know, ABC user just showed up on the dark web and then automatically flush the token and force a password reset? I mean, do you have, or could you have that ability?
The biggest problem would be able to, be able to see the password itself and be able to compare those. Wouldn't that be something, Anthony?
Well, yeah. Also, I'm trying to think of exactly the example you showed us recently, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
How many different, let's call them databases, data repositories are there for bob@abc.com? There's thousands, tens of thousands. I wouldn't know a way to scrape all of that. Is it doable, Steve? You betcha, 100%. Again, but that would be a bunch of dedicated engineers going down a rabbit hole that might be a bit of out of our lane. But I like what you're thinking about. It's like, if I could figure out that Anthony at SaaS Alerts had been exposed at all, push that back in. But that involves poking my nose in places that I'm not sure we want to go as a firm. And again, how do I make sure that I haven't missed one of those data repositories?
Well,
That's
I think
something to think on.
I think if you come from the place of nothing is perfect, and I would rather say, hey, a new entry, right? Because, you know, Bob at SaaS Alerts is going to be out there. He probably is already, right? But I guess what I'm saying is if he shows up new, right, then that's cause for alert, and I would rather side on the side of caution rather than respond, right? Hey, there was a failed login attempt from UK. Well, that's because his password just showed up on the dark web and somebody, I'd rather say, hey, Bob, your password just showed up again on the dark web, your new password, and we just reset it. I'd rather be that side of it than
Interesting.
having to respond to something. Now,
I
could a
think-
customer get upset about that? Sure, maybe. But
I think on that one, the important thing, like we've used the API call to I just got pawned. We can each have our own account, pay them for the API calls we make. You just give us the option to input our key so you can make our call to our own API call. And then what's important there is not taking any time it gets alerted, because I could just get an alert today, but it's going to say data from 2016. So we want to make sure there's a condition to say, okay, an alert came up for enrique.resendez@1msp.com. When is not when the alert came up, when is it from? This data is from old data or new data, and then from there trigger the alert.
A really good
I
idea.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. It's better to err on the side of caution of, hey, the worst thing to happen to the end user is they have to reset their password yet again. Okay, that's something they're going to have to do every month or every 90 days anyways. So that's not really punitive. It's coming back to sanitizing that data. How do I detect what is a new entry in the bad guy's database, for lack of a better word, for these data repositories? That's an interesting rabbit hole to chase down.
I think I kind of envisioned it so that person, like if we say query the API, boom, there's a new entry for this month. Could we use that as a respond rule trigger to also team it up with authentication, MFA failures or something within a certain period of time? It'd be very interesting.
Or maybe if no MFA on, you automatically block them.
Yeah.
Change the
the
password.
other thing that just came out the other day is that a couple of the white hats broke the Windows Hello.
Right.
I don't know if anybody saw that, but
I saw that.
a couple of these companies hired some good guys to go and find all the holes. Well, a lot of customers are trying to go passwordless, right? And I just was wondering if you guys had any rules built around that.
Not yet.
Get to work, guys.
Give me
Come
some
on.
time.
Ben,
give me a couple of days. that might make good for a good YouTube video. Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Just a couple of interesting little tidbits that I took from the last week.
No, I appreciate it. That's definitely what we're looking for. So
Ben, was there anything else specific you wanted to talk about your top recommendations? Recommendations, I think, is the word we're using.
yes. All right. So this last one, it's kind of a no-brainer here, but a great one to look for is the MFA Risky Business, and that's by Mert over at Microtime Computers. This guy is looking for outside approval location, teamed up with MFA authentication disabled. I would even go a step further on this one and throw in outside approval location, MFA disabled or MFA enabled. So those are two like criteria that shouldn't really be triggering at the same time. Any questions on that one?
What are the chances of false positives on that one, Ben?
Someone went on vacation and decided that MFA is just too much of a pain in the butt for them at the moment, or they're really paranoid because they are on vacation. They forgot to set up MFA before they left.
So fairly low risk to the general population.
And you could always throw in some filters on this one and say, look for abusive IP addresses or anonymous, stuff like that. So the filters are great for really fine tuning these rules and removing false positives.
Excellent. Thank you.
Here's another interesting question. I don't know if anyone has heard of a company called Sention.
Mhm.
Do you have any APIs that can pull any or query any of their data and allow us to build rules around their results?
Not
Today,
yet.
no.
but-
Come,
no.
come. Oh, I'm sorry, Ben. Are you aware of something? I'm going to shut up.
No,
Now.
I was
Ben,
going
what
to
do you
say
think?
no. I was going to say not yet, but you was going to say the exact same thing you were probably going to say.
Yeah, it's come see me in January once the app wizard is up.
Mhm.
And this is always one of those, things, depending on how robust their API is, we may very well be able to get some data in there, Steve, and use that. But until we dig into it, we won't know. The app wizard, knock wood, should be able to get us there a lot quicker.
Yeah, they're coming out with an Office 365 or browser, I should say, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, whatever partner that is going to allow all of us to really lock down browser capabilities and users changing stuff. And
Cool.
and I would really love to be able to utilize SaaS alerts to find out who's putting on proxies and add-ons and all these other things that that end up creating and generating tons of service tickets.
I think it's a great idea. A perfect use case for App Wizard.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. So I did want to go ahead and move from Respond over to Fortify. I wanted to cover a couple of things that I recommend personally, and some things that I want to caution you on. And so we'll start with the caution first. There has been a rule in here that we've had to change its description a couple of times. I even made a video about it, but I wanted to make sure you guys were aware. So there is a CIS recommendation that you enable phishing resistant MFA on any of your administrative accounts. Guess what's not phishing resistant?
Microsoft Authenticator.
Bingo. A lot of people don't know that. Yep, that's that could be we have gotten a couple of calls about this one specifically, so we added some more description into it as far as on the title, and also made a caution and to let you know about it. But while if you enable this on your client, you can roll it back. However, if you enabled it on yourself and you're using SSO to sign in, then you're going to get kicked out and you can't roll it back. So I wanted just to be aware of this. It's a great security recommendation. It doesn't get you any points, but it is recommended by CIS. But just make sure you do the legwork beforehand. In the very near future, we'll be able to very soon allow you to roll these controls out and add user exceptions. So if you did want to exclude like your break glass accounts, which is the recommended action for this one, is to exclude those accounts, then you can do that. Alternatively, you can always dismiss it. Any questions on that one? Cool. All right, so there's a couple of them that I think are great practice, and I would definitely love to hear your opinion on this. But one of the first ones that I love, that I'm glad we added into our system, is the ensure Azure management is limited to administrative roles. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to log into portal.azure.com under a regular user with no privileges, but you can get a lot of information from that. You can see your entire user list, groups they're members of, different information that really your average user does not need access to, but a bad actor would love to have. And our system makes it easy to roll that out now.
Are we actually going to name it its new name, or are we going to leave it Azure?
It's a great question. So they probably pulled it straight from CS. So Anthony, let's make a note of that.
Well, and
Rename everything.
the God's honest truth, Steve, is our dev team, I'm sorry, our support guys took a block of time this fall and stopped answering the phones. They all, I mean, as a collective unit, basically. And they went through every single one of our support tickets and trued them up, made sure the links worked, made sure the verbiage was correct, made sure the screenshots were correct. They went through everything and they took it back to dev. Hey, by the way, this doesn't look right. This has been renamed, this whatever. And no surprise, Microsoft moved the cheese. So come see me next fall, the next time we do this.
Yep.
I was just poking fun. I actually would prefer we leave it at Azure.
I think it
I'm
sounds
totally okay
better.
with that. Everybody knows what that means.
Exactly.
So this is another good one. I think create an OAuth app policy to notify you if new OAuth applications are being installed. That just allows you to kind of keep track of those applications are being loaded up on your Intra or Azure instance. The next one, ensure user consent to apps accessing company data on their behalf is not allowed. That's a good one. And the reason I'm going through these is that we have some partners that said, you know, what should I be doing with all of these different controls? Should I just be enabling everything? And I would not really recommend that. Anthony, do you have a process for this, don't you?
Kind of make it up as I go. No, I would say that is one of those things that each partner is going to find their own, and especially once templating comes out, this is going to get to be a very soft answer as to how you get there. Is what's most important to you, what's most important to your medical clients and construction clients and the like. So I would say that's something that's going to really change this process, and I don't want to nail anything down right now.
The last one that I found that I think is definitely beneficial, not a huge score impact, is just setting the number of external recipients that your user can email per hour. I remember specifically one of the phishing emails that went out to one of our old clients, and it was simply a SharePoint link that allowed someone to hijack the token, get into their mailbox, and just blast out, you know, hundreds of emails to any sort of address that they could scrape. So something like this would hopefully help at least alert and kind of curb them from being able to do that. I think the one time I saw it, it was, I think, close to like 1,000 emails that went out pretty much immediately. It's kind of a dead giveaway that something's going on. Let's see here. So Anthony, that really does it for me, honestly. Unless somebody had some questions about Fortify, you know, don't know if everybody's seen it. I hope they have. I know Enrique has.
Yeah, guys, if anybody is not familiar with any of these modules, as I sort of mentioned at the top of the call, we're happy to jump on a quick call and just rip through Fortify or Respond or anything you're not familiar with. Reach out to your account managers. And again, I think 20 minutes will be time well spent with you and your engineers to bring us up to speed. I know most of the folks on this call are fairly early adopters, and we really appreciate that. But as we talked about at the top with the evolving methodologies of Unify, how to get all those guys connected maybe a little more quickly. Platform evolves constantly. We've got different teams working on different silos at all times. Any questions before we leave Ben's world here about some, can't call them best practices, but some recommended actions?
There you go.
Hey, I just put in chat the new the new attack that just happened here in Florida. I think it would be kind of cool, time intensive, I'm sure, but as these things get published, if SaaS Alert actually said, well, we would have caught this if we, or here are the rules that you could have used to, be notified of this type of stuff. I think that'd be kind of a cool marketing thing.
Okay.
And I agree, Steve. And every time I see things like what would happen with Yellow Taxi, with the State Department and everything else, it's like this is what we do, and it drives me bananas that there are so many of these that were completely avoidable. And I'm not going to say that SaaS Alerts is the shining white, knight on the hill and the shining white horse. But man, some of this stuff is such low hanging fruit. Why did we not do this? It literally breaks my heart to see a bunch of these guys get hit in industry after industry and supply chain after supply chain with the most simple attacks. Yeah, 2 terabytes and they're gone.
I have a quick question, which is, I guess, more on the commercial side or marketing
Sure,
side.
Enrique.
I don't know if you all saw what Okta advertised a couple of days ago regarding their AI, that they're the only solution in the world so far to do this. I responded back saying, well, I do it with SaaS Alerts. I don't know if it's fancy, but they basically said they'll be able to detect and block what I consider we're doing with Respond. I don't know. I just wanted to see if I'm misinterpreting what they said. They called it like, so it's Okta AI, but I forget they have a name for their new feature to detect.
I haven't seen the advertising, Enrique. Now that's something I will have to go look up. But I will say this. I mean, this is not pulling back the curtain a long ways. We've done everything programmatically and algorithmically, and I've got a whole team running in parallel with doing some AI. I don't want to call it predictive analysis or anything like that, but that's definitely where we're going. I mean, it's where the world's going. And if I can leverage some AI to do this faster, better, more accurately, I'm going to, period, full stop. But I don't want to say we're going to have that here by Tuesday. I don't want to make any promises at all because I'll leave that promising up to our good friend Lee Rod in the weekly Sassy meetings. So please do ask him when you've got him cornered and he's in public. I'd love to hear what his reaction is. But again, yeah, this is something we've been working on for some time because it's where the market's going. And if there's a more powerful tool that I can use to leverage, why would I not?
And since you're doing your app piece in January, we'll call it January-ish. There's another product out there that does data at rest, data in motion encryption called Actifile. I'm sure some of you guys use it. Boy, I would seriously love to get some, be able to build some SaaS Alert reporting on that as well.
I again, Stephen, I've worked with Actifile in the past. They've been around a while. I don't know what the status is of their API, but if they've got some good data to share, I would be happy. I would be ecstatic to be able to present what's going on inside of Actifile in the same GUI as everything else that we do here at SaaS Alerts. So
I might know.
keep that.
I might know a guy. I'll make a phone call.
Fantastic. Yeah, once I think, and we're going to find a lot of that once the App Wizard does go live. Is oh my God, I've been using this, with this one file management tool for 10 years. It never occurred to me that I would like to have that same insight. And again, if the API is robust, no reason why we wouldn't. No reason in the world, Steve. Guys, one quick follow-up question. Did anybody get bitten this weekend? Were there any attacks that were stopped this weekend? How was your weekend, not with the family, but on the business side? I'm
We've
getting
actually
a
been
lot of
seeing a
silence.
lot
That's
less
good.
on the risk dashboard, we're seeing a lot less flare-ups of people trying to log into customers 365 in the last week.
Excellent. Excellent. Then we're all grateful that the bad guys took at least a few minutes off this week to go whatever else it is they do. That's fantastic. Thanks for that feedback, Enrique. I appreciate that. I was just sort of looking for, a boots on the ground perspective. What did we actually see in the last 6 days? Speaking of days, I'm sorry, what was that?
A lot of turkey.
Indeed, yeah. I got a fridge full of it still. Moving forward, speaking of days, we're looking at, as much as we love these meetings, maybe dropping to an alternating weeks, just because of schedule. We got some regular scheduling conflicts and some regular things to move around. But I wanted to solicit, does anybody have any great screaming heartburn about not meeting every single week for office hours, maybe moving to a 2-week cadence?
I think that's probably easier on everyone, but when you guys do roll out new products and new features, I think you should at least do like a 30-day, maybe even 60-day weekly rollout, just so that, we get kind of brought up to speed on new feature sets.
I think that's absolutely fair. That's a good point, Steve. Thank you for that, because it's funny. Some of our more powerful modules get rapid adoption by our population, by you guys, by our MSPs. And some of them that I think are just neat as all get out, 20-30% in the first month, a couple of percentage points each month. It wasn't like Fortify where we had such massive adoption up front. So that is been one of our challenges, is to make sure that we're not only exposing to all of our partners that this exists, but we want to demonstrate how easy it is to leverage and to, again, take that security, take that safety back to your clients, and then bloody well monetize that. So thank you for that, Steve. Any other thoughts on that matter? Guys, I want to thank you all very much for your time today. Great dive in. Ben, thanks for taking us through your favorite top 5 favorites of each one.
No problem.
And I look forward to chatting with you guys whenever our next meeting is. We'll get it scheduled and get marketing to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we don't miss anybody. Enjoy getting through the rest of those leftovers. Hopefully the metrics stay nice and quiet, and we'll talk again next time, guys. Thank you. Y'all take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys, thanks.
Thanks.